I am Dracula, and I welcome you to my house.
In 1958, fresh off their first foray into classic horror with The Curse of Frankenstein the previous year, Hammer Films brought one of history's most infamous baddies to the screen with their take on Dracula. Essentially creating a style and template that they would build upon throughout the next decade, Hammer made gothic atmosphere, shocking violence and tight corsets their calling card, making international stars of its actors along the way. As our film opens, we learn that a Jonathan Harker has travelled to the remote castle of Count Dracula to help him catalogue his extensive library. However, he is there in fact to put an end to the bloodsucker's reign of terror. This is the first indication that this film will not only deviate from the source material, where Harker was an unwitting victim, but in fact deletes mountains of it, stripping it of any unnecessary bloat to run it at a super lean 88 minutes. However, it's no surprise that Harker's plan does not end well for him, forcing his colleague Professor Van Helsing to come and investigate his mysterious disappearance. However, Dracula, wily character that he is, has already one-upped Van Helsing and travelled to London. Or at least that's what I remember happening. Upon rewatching the film, it's here that the geography of the movie started to confuse me. So I assumed the castle was in Transylvania, which is in eastern Romania. However, here the castle is in a town called Klausenberg, which sounds a bit more German to me, and is actually just a short distance apparently from where the other main characters live, which in the novel is London, so meh. Anyway, back in London / generic German town, the Count is vampirising women left, right and centre, including the late Harker's fiancée Lucy and her sister-in-law Mina. The legend that is Sir Christopher Lee plays Count Dracula, and with a quite limited screen time brings a charm and menace to the character that arguably hasn't been matched since, greatly helped by one of cinema's great creepy close-ups. This one. Lee's Dracula, impeccably dressed and of course speaking perfect English for a Romanian German Count, spends most of the film appearing in doorways as dramatic music swells around him, before either making an attack or seducing a young lady, or sometimes both. Although Lee has minimal dialogue, he has an amazing screen presence. However, it was Peter Cushing as his nemesis Van Helsing who got top billing. Despite his character not arriving until about 25 minutes into the film, Cushing steals the entire movie with his mixture of English charm and no-nonsense vampire slaying. He doubles up as an assist to the audience as he explains vampire lore to his friend Arthur, played by a young Michael Gough, who you may remember as Alfred from the Batman movies. Watching Cushing and Lee battling against each other is the highlight of the film, as they run across tables, jump over banisters and engage in general fisticuffs. It's all fantastic stuff. As previously mentioned, it's not an overly long film, which was mostly down to its lack of budget. Hence both the streamlining of the story and other more famous abilities of Dracula being discarded, such as him being able to turn into a bat, a wolf, etc.
I always understood that if there were such things, they could change themselves into bats or wolves.
That's a common fallacy.
Regardless of its budgetary constraints, this film has that sumptuous classic Hammer look they've become synonymous with. The Technicolor photography really shows off the excellent costumes and sets. Dracula's castle's no longer the dark, grey, dingy ruin, now a more vibrantly decorated, stately home. Peter Cushing manages to squeeze in several snazzy wardrobe changes, coming across more like his portrayal of Sherlock Holmes than a vampire killer.
I cannot impress upon you strongly enough how important it is that you obey my instructions. Do exactly as I say, and we may be able to save her. If you don't, she will die. I'll be here in the morning.
Please consider subscribing to Real Classic Film Reviews if you're a fan of classic horror movies like this one. On this channel we'll be discussing a huge variety of other great movies from every genre imaginable. Enjoy.
Lucy.
Dear Arthur, why didn't you come sooner? Come, let me kiss you.
Directed by Terence Fisher, who'd launched Hammer's foray into true horror the previous year with The Curse of Frankenstein, and ended up directing 29 films for the studio, 12 of them with Sir Christopher Lee. By modern standards, this Dracula of the late 50s isn't particularly scary, but at the same time it was shocking enough to have several scenes shortened or cut entirely to earn its X certificate. 1958 being a bit too early for stakes to the chest and relatively formal eroticism. In fact, only as recently as 2012 have the British Film Institute managed to insert some of this previously mythical material back into the movie from footage found in Japan. Sir Christopher Lee would go on to make many more vampire films for Hammer over the next decade or so, unfortunately not getting a great deal to do in many of them, a fact he publicly complained of. After getting a bit fed up of playing the character and concerned about typecasting and the effect it would have on his career, he decided to travel to Italy to play Dracula. Both Lee and Cushing would go on to carry Hammer through the 60s and well into the 70s, providing the movie-going public with frights, laughter, sex, drama and buckets of bright red blood. There are so many Dracula films floating around these days that it's a difficult task picking a favourite, but as the torchbearer for a new era of zany horror, this has to be high on the list. Go check it out.